Alright, enough controversies, let's get back to talking Gundam. Hey everybody, I'm Buster Green, and so on my last video about Gundam G-QuuuuuuX, I went over the first wave of information that dropped about this brand new Gundam show created by Hideaki Anno, Studio Kara, in collaboration with Sunrise. If you know nothing about this show, you should check that out first. That's basically the introduction and analysis of the trailer I did. On this video, I'm going to be getting into some of the very, very deep leaked materials. And the jury is still out about how to properly pronounce the name. I think we'll have no real idea until the show starts airing. And there's some more steady commercials where people say the name. I settled on G-QuuuuuX last time. I might keep doing that, but I don't know. I really want to say G-QuuuuuuX for some reason. I think it's because that's the way it's phonetically written and because Japanese people sometimes like to overemphasize the kanji Q because it rhymes with the English word Q, which is kind of considered mysterious to people in Japan. So Anno had a penchant for trying to stick Q's in Evangelion titles randomly, so yeah. G-QuuuuuuX kind of sounds right to me, but it might be G-QuuuuuuX too, so I'm maybe gonna alternate between them. So one thing that's not a spoiler is that people have had a moment to decompress the material and have realized that this show has kind of weird character designs. The character designs here are the result of the character designing Taki. Take is a character designer who, I'm not sure if she's male or female, but most recently they've done the human character designs for Pokemon Sun, Moon, Sword, and Shield. And I respect Take for doing those. I honestly can't go a whole week without someone mentioning how base and cool Marnie was in that game. Although for a Gundam series, it is a little bit out of the norm and it's a little bit crazy for people. It's coming also at a time when I think audiences are starting to reject more cutesy designs, especially when they're in more serious shows. At the same time this is coming out, there's also a new season of Genesis Aquarium coming out with these aggressively chibi designs, and I kind of hate that. I think I'm definitely going to skip watching the new Aquarion because those character designs are way too chibi. But for G-QuuuuuuX, it's cartoony, but overall it's not a deal breaker for me because Nyan and Shuji look realistic enough. It's just a little bit different, but I feel like it's within the wheelhouse of Nadi and the Secret of Blue Water and other stuff that Anno and Kara have done in the past. So anyway, last time I covered G-QuuuuuuX, there was some crazy leaked material in the mix and I had kind of glanced over it, but then it got super suppressed on the Japanese side. But a few days ago it surfaced again, from what I'm hearing is from Italy, with full English translations. So with that out of the way, I feel like I'm now in the clear to fully go over these spoilers and the crazy implications held within without fear of legal repercussion. Oh, and I also want to tell you guys about the Ghiren Greed video game series in this video, which I'm super aware that most people have probably never heard of. Unfortunately, I can't really structure this video properly if I don't talk about the G-QuuuuuuX spoilers first, though. So, I don't know, maybe I should also do a stream of Ghiren's Greed sometime, but the game still isn't 100% translated in English because the game is legendarily difficult to emulate, but it is being translated by an unloved and unpraised lone hackster bro who has been steadily translating the PSP port of Ghiren Greed into English for over the past 8 years. Godspeed, hackster bro, you're a real hero. Someday you're gonna finish it. Alright, so let's get into these G-QuuuuuuuX spoilers, and first things first, there's a general synopsis of what the show is, and this synopsis is absolutely insane. So the synopsis goes like this. The year was 0079. The space colony cluster, Side 3 on the far side of the moon, now calling itself the Principality of Zeon, declares its independence and launches a war against the Earth Federation. Then a young hero of the Principality forces, Char the Red Comet, manages to capture the Federation forces' state-of-the-art Gundam mobile armor. Piloting the Red Gundam, he drastically changes the course of the war, leading the Principality forces to victory. It is now UC 0085, 5 years after the end of the war. Amate, a high school student living quietly inside 6, faces a turning point in her life when she meets the smuggler Nyan and a boy named Shuji, who pilots the Red Gundam. Okay, did you guys catch all that? That's some crazy shit there. Let's depack all that. So first things first, this establishes 100% that this is our first alternate UC Gundam show here. And that's a little bit crazy to understand, but we seem to be dealing with an alternate universe set in the UC, which is something we've never had before. At least not in anime. There's been a couple of manga that have tried to reboot the original Gundam and created their own like branch universe. There's also been an ongoing debate about whether or not Thunderbolt is actually the mainline UC because of various minor little differences along the way. But for me, Thunderbolt tracks with mainline UC, so I'm like against that argument. So I said in my last video that I thought G-QuuuuuuX could be a branch sequel to where Zeon wins the war, and this is now confirmed. But I also don't think this is a branch sequel. I don't think it canonically comes off of the 0079 we know and love because of the incredible amount of things that have been changed. I think this is like some kind of weird alternate sequel because there's too many high inconsistencies with established Gundam canon. Like, I think with all due respect, I think this is like a funky alternate universe you see, kind of like the funky alternate universe recently seen in Gundam ALC, where Char and Lala were hipsters. In this funky alternate universe, we have Char winning the war for Zeon and then disappearing, and yeah, there's some big crazy shit to go over here. But let's go ahead now because I feel like the next item on this list will help explain what we're actually dealing with, which is the full unveil of the red Mobile Suit Gundam. So this is the red Gundam. It's kind of what I was alluding to before. It's a 50-50 cross between a Gundam and an EVA. But I want to say G-QuuuuuuX is operating as a full alternate universe because by all accounts, this is the RX-78-2 Gundam, the Gundam that Amuro should have piloted. So what I'm saying here is that this is an alternate universe where the RX-78 never looked like this, it always looked like this, and then Char painted it red and now it looks like that. And it's got that creepy EVA humanoid factor. It's got kind of a face like a ball gag. And most importantly, Char is its pilot. Char takes it over. Char customizes it. Char makes it its main unit. And yeah, so that's pretty crazy, but I've actually heard the story before. And now I need to talk about Ghiren's greed. So I guess I need to unpack Ghiren's greed in the middle of this video, not the beginning or the end. So yeah, Ghiren's greed, what the hell is that? Ghiren's greed is this ultimate what-if scenario for Gundam. It's kind of like that Marvel show What If, but it's not a show, it's a video game. And the game is kind of beloved, but also very obscure because it's like kind of a badly animated Super Robot Wars, kind of a worse Fire Emblem, kind of a worse G generation. Long story short, it's a tactics RPG. And quite frankly, the series has never really caught on in the West because none of the games have ever been translated. And even in Japan, like the series is kind of considered like inferior to G Generation and Super Robot Wars. So it's never really caught on, even though they did make 5 games in the series in the early 2000s for the PS1, the PS2, and the Dreamcast. And the final Ghiren's Greed 5 got a Hail Mary PSP port like a little bit after it was released, which ended up being the final game in the series. The current most technologically advanced version of the game ever made is the PSP port. Now, here's what I know about the games, because I've never played them, but I've heard some crazy shit from my friends who have played them. The games have also never been 100% translated, and with the earlier games, they probably never will because they're like unplayable on modern emulators, and you can't even play them like if you import them. The absolute best case scenario for this game is maybe Gundam will get so big in the West that Bandai will take pity on us and release a new version of this game to coincide with G-QuuuuuuX. I think that G-QuuuuuuX is putting some heat on the series, and it's very possible that we might get a new entry in the franchise. But these games are honestly some of the hardest Gundam content to access outside of Japan because they have all these weird programming quirks that make them super resistant to most modern forms of emulation. And even if you can emulate them, they're incredibly difficult to translate because a majority of their text is in images and not raw text like usual video games. Ghiren's Greed 5 for the PSP is the sole exception that might someday be translated, but like I said, there's one bro who's been translating it for 8 years and he's still only like barely halfway through. Honestly, what I know about this game is mostly leaks from people who played it, and other Gundam projects that have made vague allusions to the cool parts of it. Mostly Gundam vs. Z Gundam that did have like a full Ghiren's Greed scenario mission, and G Generation will occasionally throw in some Ghiren Greed's unit for fun. Some of the Ghiren's Greed units have lived on long enough to become their own mysterious mecha, surviving as like model kits or in other strange corners of the fandoms. Ghiren's Greed relatively focuses mostly on the butterfly effect of changing the lore of the original Gundam, but with some of the sequels they've gone into Zeta, Double Zeta, and CCA, and that's kind of it. So long story short, Ghiren's Greed is mostly what the fuck, what if scenarios for Gundam. Now, I mentioned the Char Gundam, which happens if Char steals the Gundam, but there are a couple of different scenarios that result in the Char Gundam. Like the G-QuuuuuuX scenario seems to imply that in G-QuuuuuuX, Char steals the Gundam in the first episode before Amuro steals it and uses it to win the war for Zeon. But in Ghiren's Greed, what happens is it plays out way differently. As far as I know, the main scenario leading up to the Char Gundam is that in the first episode of Mobile Suit Gundam, Char and Sayla actually see each other and actually talk to each other. And in Ghiren's Greed, supposedly Sayla confronts Char and convinces him to switch sides to the Federation and joins up with the White Base crew, at which time he is eventually given the Gundam and paints it red. However, there are other crazy scenarios that also result in Char obtaining the Gundam, like the one from the Gundam novel where Amuro dies and then Char just switches sides at that point. There's also some majorly crazy scenarios in Ghiren's Greed, like Char and Sayla never like splitting up and eventually starring Neo Zeon with Ramba Rao in the time frame of the 1 Year War. But yeah, most scenarios in Ghiren's Greed mostly come down to what if character A lived or what if character B switched sides. Like there are lots of different scenarios where Amuro Ray somehow dies early, which completely changes the course of the war. There's a lot of scenarios where Char switches sides randomly for whatever reason. There's scenarios from like alternate Gundam novels that are thrown in here, like the Belted Chicker's Children thing, the Nightingale and the High New Gundam thing. There's so many crazy scenarios in this game that it's impossible to list them all. And honestly, I don't know if all the ones I'm even listing here are actually in the game, or if they're just like ones people thought up or that were like in other mangas. Like I know one that was from the game was Garma Zabi living, and eventually if he survives the 1 Year War, he grows his hair super long. There's also another one where Cassilia survives Mobile Suit Gundam and then becomes the leader of Neo Zeon instead of Hamonkan. That makes a much weirder Neo Zeon with like a lot of 1 Year War veterans in it. There's the classic what if Amuro and Camille eventually join the Titans, which honestly, like considering their history, they probably should have, if not for the fact that the Titans alienated with them with fascism and violence. There's also a weird scenario in Ghiren's Greed that causes the Titans to form within the context and time frame of the 1 Year War, which doesn't really make sense to me. I guess the implication here is that Jamatov splits off from the Federation and causes a Federation civil war in the middle of the 1 Year War, which super would weaken the Federation. But the bright side is then you get weird Titans customs like the Titans custom original Gundam and some other 1 Year War units. So yeah, that's kind of fun. Then you get a ton of crazy custom mechas out of Ghiren's Greed, which is kind of the main reason it prevails. Like, for example, if Dozo Zabi survives Solomon, he eventually customizes the Big Zom after a period of trial and error. If Makube doesn't die at Texas Colony, then Zeon ends up adopting the Gyan instead of the Gelgoog as its final mass production mole suit. And then we get all these weird Gaian variants like the Gaian Cannon and the Gaian Krieger. And okay, yeah, so that's the main basis of my spiel on Ghiren's Greed. I really want to play this game despite its lackluster gameplay, just for the deep, crazy lore implications that it contains with its numerous what-if scenarios. But I guess I'm going to patiently wait for Haxerbro to finish translating it, no matter how many years that takes, unless G-QuuuuuuX makes it so popular again that by some miracle we get a new edition of it that would hopefully get an English translation. All right, now I gotta get back to those G-QuuuuuuuX spoiler breakdowns. So yeah, we have this red Gundam. It is the Char custom Gundam, but it's been redesigned to look like an EVA. And the description here says that this is the red Gundam that belongs to Shuji. So this is a Char Asimil custom Gundam, but now Shuji has taken control of it. Don't know how that happened, but that's pretty nuts. It also can be seen from this one frame of the trailer. And also, I brought up before that the Lala bits were being featured in the trailer. So here's some weirdness that I didn't expect. The Lala bits are actually on Char's Gundam, and theoretically, that shouldn't work. But then also theoretically, why shouldn't it work? Because that's essentially the same setup the new Gundam has. So the reason I say it shouldn't work is mostly coming down to the way the mobile armor LMF works, or rather how it might have worked. Because the LMF is kind of one of those most strange and complicated designs in Gundam history, because there's a major unsettlement amongst the fan community about how the LMF actually works. And hey, if you've got your own theory about how the LMF works, drop a comment. But like, for me, for the most part, I always thought the LMF was just a spaceship, and it's got like a hangar bay that's filled with funnels. And yeah, at best, maybe most of the inside of the LMF is like an aircraft carrier with like a runway to store and launch the funnels. That's how I think the LMF works. But people have put lots of different thoughts and maybe too much thought into it over the years, and it's become a debate topic. Like, some people think the LMF had a psycho frame. Other people think the LMF was like carrying around like a large Saikamu computer device inside, while other people think that the LMF was actually connected to a larger computer server stored elsewhere, which is how it's described in the original Gundam series notes. And one of the weirdest and wildest takes comes out of the manga Solomon Express, written by Makoto Kobayashi, in which both the LMF and the Brabro were apparently filled with a huge abomination of cloned living human brain meat. What the fuck? Like, it doesn't even indicate that they came from like alive humans, just that this Saikamu system doesn't run on a psycho frame, it runs on a big pile of meat. That's disgusting. Now, I want to call extra attention to these meaty Solomon Express interpretations, because considering that the Gundam now looks like an EVA, and we all know from EVA lore that the EVAs ended up being one day giant genetically modified humans wearing armor, I kind of think it's worth bringing these versions up on the basis that maybe Anno is running back to this version, and maybe G-QuuuuuuX might have some fucked up giant EVA style abominations like this. Like, it's Hideki Anno, there could be monsters, you know? Anyway, the presence of Char and his Red Gundam make it seem way more likely that G-QuuuuuuX is a bit of a bait and a switch from what looked initially like a Witch from Mercury continuation, another Gundam fight show. And I'm hoping right now that G-QuuuuuuX is more of a proper UC experience, bringing us back to the status quo of the original Gundam, which would be completely in line with what Anno has previously done for Shin Kamen Rider, Shin Ultraman, and Shin Godzilla. So G-QuuuuuuX seemingly not presenting itself in the trailer as Shin Gundam, but this behind the scenes material, this screams to me that this is Shin Gundam. Although I am more confused than ever by that trailer now and the clan battle thing and the Pomeranians, because I wonder if that's the show or maybe that's just the jumping off point for the first episode. Because all UC Gundam stories have heavily, first and foremost, been about the brutality of war. Like, almost every single UC Gundam story starts with a war breaking out. And this did not seem compatible with G-QuuuuuuX's trailer that otherwise sets up a bouncy, fun story about a Gundam battle girl running away from the police. Now, there is some additional text describing the backstory of what's going on here. So, apparently, the Gundam was originally a mobile suit of the Federation Army, but it was captured by Char after he became aware of its development plans, and subsequently he painted it red and it became his favorite suit. But then towards the end of the war, it suffered a Saikamu accident, and they wiped out half of the Space Force under Solomon, and the Gundam went missing alongside Char. But now it's 5 years later, and after the war, Shuji appears in the Red Gundam inside 6, and together with Amate, they take place in the clan battle. And so that's another thing that's crazy, because it sounds like they're implying that first things first, Char stole the Gundam in the first episode of the anime. And then they're implying, because if you remember back to 0079, the main objective of Char's first mission was to capture or destroy the reported under construction Gundam. And quite frankly, the main reason he failed is because Slender, Denim, and Jean did too much collateral damage to the colony, which mobilized Amuro Ray to steal the Gundam in self-defense. Now, just jumping out at the way this is described, I want to think that maybe something else went down in this reality. I think something more akin to the first episode of Zeta Gundam, where Char went in first and alone and therefore managed to steal the Gundam like he stole the Gundam Mark II in the first episode of Zeta Gundam. But then apparently the Gundam has a Psy-Kamu accident and destroys half of Solomon. Well, this is also mystifying, but it tracks because around the time of the Battle of Solomon, Lala was testing the Elmif, the Char had gotten involved with the Flanagan Institute, and we all know the classic RX-78-2 did not have Psy-Kamu, but this one has the Lala bits added onto its backpack, so maybe this one does. And if it really caused such a crazy accident, why the fuck is a teenage graffiti artist rocking it now? So that's crazy. I'm a bit mystified by all this. We know from the trailer that G-QuuuuuuX is setting up a class inequality problem, seemingly caused by the 1-year war, but now that we know that Machu is from Side 6, the neutral colonies that seemed ambivalent to Zeon's goals, that kind of makes sense because if the Zabi family is still in power, maybe they took all the wealth, and that would kind of explain the lack of war damage we're seeing in the show because Machu is from Side 6 that wasn't part of the war. So there's one last page of the leak, and this is information about the Gundam Rise Heavy. The Gundam Rise Heavy is seemingly the prototype form of the G-QuuuuuuX, the unit that Machu pilots, and the text here says that this is a new mobile suit belonging to the Charlia Bull unit, codenamed the Alpha Killer, equipped with Omega Psy-Kamu, the development which was barred after the war and which only special Newtypes can activate, and Amadi pilots it in the first episode, after which it becomes his beloved machine. Okay, so all that is crazy. So based on the fact that Char stole the Gundam, apparently after Char stole the RX-78-2, Zeon reverse engineered it and started making their own Gundams in this universe that are completely new to us. Now, this has technically happened before with Anaheim playing both sides and the famous Mono Eye Gundam story, which I've never really fully deep-hacked, but the other big crazy thing here is the name drop of Charlia Bull. Charlia Bull has always been one of the most craziest figures in the Gundam mythos because he is the fourth and last confirmed Newtype in the original Gundam. In the original Gundam, there are only 4 dangerous Newtype pilots. There's Lala, Amuro, Char, and Charlia. And Charlia is weird because Charlia doesn't really have loyalty to any of them. He doesn't really have a big connection to any of them. If anything, he's a close friend of Ghiren Zabi's. And aside for Amuro killing him, he's a complete wild card in the show. And the only other thing that really happened was he was a little bit psychically aware of Char's malice towards Ghiren, but he never acted on it. But the reason Charlia Bull is so interesting is that Charlia was always a character that Tomino had very big plans for in the original 50-episode run of Gundam, which I did a whole video about. But when the show got cut short, the character was instant killed by Amuro, and a majority of his unutilized story was later recycled into Papnus Scirocco for Zeta Gundam. And I know there's always been this huge sense of loss with the development of the original Gundam, especially around Charlia. One of my favorite reimaginings of the original Gundam is the story For the Barrel, a 2000 Gundam remake that essentially made Charlia kind of another Char who is both hostile to Amuro and Char and working for his own goals and rocking some incredible Ringo Starr energy in this reinterpretation. Now, quite frankly, I know Anno knows about all this, and I'm really excited for the implications that could have on the show, and that kind of brings me to what I want to end this video on. The implications for G-QuuuuuuX are now incredible because if the show is an alternative sequel, an alternative Zeta Gundam, then this is the most insane show ever made because literally every single character from Mobile Suit Gundam, Zeta, Double Zeta, and Char's counterattack has the potential to come back full force in G-QuuuuuuX in a completely wild and random way. Every big Gundam character is now suddenly in play again for the first time in decades, and that has me so excited. I'm gonna put down some bets right now. I think Yazan Gable is coming back, guys. I think he's gonna violate some people. I think he's gonna be a hobo again. I think Yazan Gable is popular enough to break on through again, but yeah, so there's so many crazy possibilities we have here now. Is Char actually dead in this universe? Maybe he's Quattro Vagina. Maybe Quattro Vagina is going to impress us with his presence in the show. Will Camille Badan show up? Is Shuji Camille Badan? Will Charlia Bull show up? Will he look like Ringo Starr? And what the fuck happened to Amuro in a universe where he never became a Gundam pilot? Is he just a day worker? Is he a soldier in this universe? Did he get onto White Base and escape Side 7? Did Char even attack Side 7 if he just got in and stole the Gundam? And for that matter, if Zeon won the war, does that mean like the Zabi family is like ruling over as like world emperors? There are so many crazy implications to G-QuuuuuX being an alternate UC, and I'm so stoked about this right now. This is now like my most exciting show of like 2025. The theatrical release in Japan is coming out like a month from now. There's still no info about if this is happening stateside, but I'm gonna guess if it does, it might be closer to April due to the typical 3-month translation lag. All right, that's everything I had to say about G-QuuuuuuX right now, and that was quite a lot. If you guys have any other additional information to give me, leave a comment, or let's talk about Ghiren's greed. Comment about that too. All right, later guys, I feel sick. Good night.